The beeping machines filled the ICU as I reached for my phone with trembling hands. My chest felt like someone was sitting on it, and every breath was a struggle. I had been calling my children for days, begging them to come see me. "Please," I had whispered into the phone. "I need you here." But instead of my 3 children at my bedside, I saw their group chat filled with photos from Hawaii. Cocktails with little umbrellas, sandy beaches, big smiles and laughter. My son Russell posted a selfie by the pool with the caption, "Living our best life." My daughter Sky shared a sunset photo with heart emojis. My youngest, Charlie, uploaded a video of himself surfing. I felt my heart break into 1,000 pieces. They had all told me they were too busy with work to visit. Russell said he was swamped with clients. Sky claimed she was buried in deadlines. Charlie mumbled something about important travel for work. Now I realized they had lied to me. Every single one of them. While I was fighting for my life, they were sipping drinks on the beach. The phone slipped from my weak fingers as tears rolled down my cheeks. This was the deepest betrayal of my life. My name is Leona Lawson. I'm 68 years old, and I always thought family meant everything. I had spent my whole life believing that if you love your children enough, they'll love you back. I was wrong. After my husband died 12 years ago, I worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table. I cleaned offices at night and worked at a grocery store during the day. My feet ached, my back hurt, but I never complained. I wanted to give my children everything I never had growing up. When Russell couldn't afford law school, I took out a second mortgage on my house. When Sky's business failed, I emptied my savings account to help her. When Charlie got arrested for drunk driving, I paid for the best lawyer I could find. I thought I was being a good mother. I put all 3 of them through college. I paid for Russell's wedding when his new wife wanted something fancy. I babysat Sky's kids every weekend so she could work. I lent Charlie money so many times I lost count. I always said yes. I always helped. I always put them first. Now, lying in this hospital bed with tubes in my arms, I finally understood the truth. I hadn't raised grateful children. I had raised selfish strangers who only called when they needed money. I closed my eyes and remembered my last calls to them. The memory felt like knives in my chest. Russell had answered his phone while walking into some important meeting. His voice was rushed and annoyed. "Mom, I can't talk right now. I told you I'm swamped with new clients. Can this wait?" I had tried to explain that the doctor said my heart was getting worse. "That's what you said last month," he replied. "You're stronger than you think. I'll call you this weekend." He never called that weekend. Sky was even worse. When I called her crying, she sighed like I was bothering her. "Mom, you know I'm buried under deadlines right now. The magazine is launching next month. I literally cannot leave the office." I begged her to just visit for one day. "I promise I'll come see you soon," she said quickly. "I have to go. My boss is calling." Charlie barely let me speak. "Hey Mom, can't talk. I'm traveling for work this week. You know how it is." Before I could even mention the hospital, he hung up. Each excuse echoed in my head now like cruel mockery. Swamped with clients, buried in deadlines, traveling for work, all lies. Every single word was a lie while they planned their Hawaiian vacation behind my back. I lay in the hospital bed feeling weaker than I ever had in my life, but my mind was sharper than ever. The heart monitor beeped steadily next to me. Nurses came and went, checking my IV and adjusting my blankets. They were kinder to me than my own children. I thought about how I had always rescued them from their problems. When Russell was young, I drove across town at midnight to pick him up from parties. When Sky got bad grades, I hired expensive tutors. When Charlie crashed his car in high school, I fixed it without telling his father. I never let them face consequences. I never let them struggle. I thought I was protecting them, but really I was teaching them that someone else would always clean up their messes. I created 3 spoiled adults who expected everything and gave nothing back. A kind nurse named Messi came to check on me. She noticed I looked sad. "Do you have anyone to call, honey?" she asked gently. "Any family coming to visit?" I looked at her sweet face and answered with a bitter smile. "No, not anymore." The words felt strange coming out of my mouth, but they were true. I had given birth to 3 children, but I had no family, at least not the kind that shows up when you need them most. The next morning, my longtime lawyer, Mr. Albright, walked into my hospital room. He looked worried as he pulled up a chair next to my bed. I had known him for 20 years. He handled my husband's estate and all my legal matters since then. "Leona, I heard about your condition from Mossy at the front desk. She's my neighbor," he explained. "I wanted to check on you." His gray eyebrows furrowed with concern. "How are you feeling?" I told him about my heart problems and how the doctors weren't sure if I would fully recover. We talked for a while about my health and my treatment. Then he brought up something that made my stomach turn. "Leona, I need to remind you that your estate plan hasn't been updated in years. Everything is still set to go to Russell, Sky, and Charlie equally." He pulled out a folder from his briefcase. "Given your current situation, you might want to review these documents." The thought hit me like a punch in the gut. Everything I owned, my house, my savings, my life insurance, was still going to go to the very children who couldn't even be bothered to visit me while I was dying. They would get rewarded for abandoning me. Mr. Albright noticed my face change. "Are you all right, Leona?" I nodded slowly, but inside I was burning with anger and hurt. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling tiles, counting them over and over. The machines beeped around me. Nurses walked quietly through the halls. But all I could think about was my will. Why should I leave my life's work to people who treated me like garbage? I had spent 40 years building something to pass down to my children. I worked double shifts, saved every penny, and went without so many things, just to make sure they would be secure after I died. But they had already shown me exactly how much I meant to them. Nothing. I meant absolutely nothing to them. They were probably sitting by the pool right now, laughing and having fun while I fought for every breath. I made up my mind that night. I would not leave everything to children who couldn't even pretend to care about me. I had other options. I could leave money to the animal shelter where I volunteered every Tuesday. I could help my neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, who always brought me soup when I was sick. I could even set up trust funds for my grandchildren directly, so my selfish children couldn't touch the money. When the morning nurse came to check my vitals, I asked her to please call Mr. Albright. "Tell him I need to see him today," I said. "It's urgent." My hands shook, but not from weakness, from determination. Mr. Albright arrived that afternoon with his briefcase full of legal papers. He pulled his chair close to my bed and spread the documents on the bedside table. His voice was gentle but professional. "Are you sure about this, Leona? This is a big decision." He had explained all my options. I could leave money to charity, to friends, to my grandchildren, or split it however I wanted. I didn't have to give my ungrateful children a single dollar. My hands shook as I signed each document, but not from fear. Each signature felt like I was cutting invisible strings that tied me to their selfishness. With every stroke of the pen, I was taking back control of my own life and death. I named the animal shelter as my primary beneficiary. Those dogs and cats showed more loyalty than my children ever did. I left money to Mrs. Rodriguez, who checked on me every day. I set up education funds for my grandchildren that would go directly to them when they turned 21. As for Russell, Sky, and Charlie, they would get exactly what they had given me. Nothing. Mr. Albright witnessed my signatures and had a nurse sign as a second witness. "It's done," he said quietly. "Your new will is completely legal and binding." For the first time in weeks, I felt relief wash over me. I was finally free from the burden of ungrateful children. 2 hours later, Mr. Albright called my children while they were lounging by the pool in Hawaii. I had asked him to tell them about the change immediately. I wanted them to know while I was still alive to see their reaction. Through the phone's speaker, I could hear the sounds of their vacation. People laughing, music playing, waves crashing. It made my blood boil. Russell answered first, his voice relaxed and happy. "Mr. Albright, is everything okay?" Russell sounded confused about why his mother's lawyer was calling him during his vacation. Mr. Albright's voice was calm and professional. "I'm calling to inform you that your mother has made significant changes to her will. As of this morning, you, Sky, and Charlie have been removed as beneficiaries. I thought you should be aware, especially given her current medical condition." The silence that followed was deafening. I could picture Russell's face going white with shock. "What do you mean removed?" he finally stammered. "Your mother has chosen other beneficiaries for her estate. The decision is final and legally binding." Mr. Albright's tone never changed. He had delivered news like this before. I heard Russell drop his phone. In the background, I could hear him shouting to his siblings. "Sky, Charlie, get over here right now." Their perfect vacation paradise was about to turn into their worst nightmare. Within minutes, all three of my children were screaming into Russell's phone. I could hear every word through the speaker, and their panic was music to my ears. "This has to be a mistake," Sky shouted. "Mom would never do this to us." Her voice was shrill and desperate. The same daughter who was too busy with deadlines to visit her dying mother was suddenly very interested in family. Charlie grabbed the phone. "She's probably confused from all the medication. Old people get mixed up in hospitals all the time. This can't be legal." He sounded frantic, like his whole world was falling apart. Russell took the phone back. His lawyer training kicked in as he tried to find loopholes. "She's not in her right mind. She's sick and scared. We can contest this. We can prove she wasn't mentally competent when she signed." Mr. Albright cut him off firmly. "I've been your mother's lawyer for 20 years. I can assure you she is completely mentally competent. She understood exactly what she was doing. 3. Medical professionals have confirmed her mental clarity in the past week." The arguing in the background got louder. I heard one of them crying. Another was shouting about plane tickets. Their beautiful Hawaiian vacation had turned into chaos in less than 5 minutes. "We're flying home immediately," Russell said through gritted teeth. "This isn't over." But it was over. They just didn't know it yet. After Mr. Albright hung up the phone, I rested easier than I had in months. The weight I had been carrying was finally off my shoulders. I wasn't their backup plan anymore. I wasn't their safety net. I was free. I whispered to myself in the quiet hospital room, "Now they'll know what they've done." But it wasn't really about punishment. It was about dignity. For the first time in years, I felt like I had control over my own life. The evening nurse, Massey, noticed I seemed more peaceful. "You look like you're feeling better, Mrs. Lawson," she said while checking my blood pressure. "Your numbers are actually improving." I smiled at her. "I am feeling better, much better." And I meant it. My body was still weak, but my spirit felt stronger than it had in years. I had stopped begging for love from people who would never give it. That night, I actually slept soundly for the first time since I had been admitted. No more anxiety about disappointing my children. No more guilt about not being good enough for them. No more wondering what I had done wrong as a mother. I had finally learned the hardest lesson of my life. You can't make people love you, not even your own children. But you can stop letting them hurt you. And sometimes, that's enough. 18 hours later, my 3 children came storming through the hospital doors like a hurricane. But they didn't rush to my room to see if I was okay. Instead, they cornered Mr. Albright in the hallway outside the elevator. I could hear their angry voices through my partially open door. Sky was the loudest. "This is ridiculous. You have to fix this. She's our mother." "How is this even legal?" Charlie demanded. "She's sick and confused. Anyone can see that." Russell, trying to sound professional, threatened to sue. "If you helped her make this decision while she wasn't thinking clearly, you could lose your license. Think about your reputation." Mr. Albright's calm voice cut through their hysteria. "Your mother is 78 years old and has been managing her own affairs perfectly well for decades. 3 doctors have confirmed she is mentally competent. She understood every single word on those documents." "This is insane," Sky screamed. "We're her children. We're supposed to inherit everything." "According to who?" Mr. Albright asked quietly. "Your mother worked her entire life for that money. She has the right to leave it to whoever she chooses, and she has chosen not to leave it to any of you." I heard footsteps stomping away, then coming back. They were pacing like caged animals. Their greed was showing, and it was uglier than I had ever imagined. "The will can be changed back," Russell said desperately. "She just needs to sign new papers." Finally, my children entered my hospital room. But they didn't come with flowers or concern for my health. Their faces were twisted with anger, poorly disguised as worry. Sky rushed to my bedside, but her hug felt cold and calculated. "Mom, we came as soon as we heard. We're so sorry we weren't here sooner." Her voice dripped with fake sweetness. Russell stood at the foot of my bed with his arms crossed. He looked like he was in a courtroom instead of visiting his sick mother. "Mom, we need to talk about this whole situation. Mr. Albright says you made some changes while you were upset." Charlie paced by the window, running his hands through his hair. "This is crazy, Mom. You know we love you. You know we would always take care of you." I looked at each of their faces. Faces I had kissed goodnight for years, faces I had worried about and prayed for. Now they looked like strangers. Angry, greedy strangers. "How could you do this to us?" Sky hissed, dropping the sweet act. "After everything we've done for you?" I felt a surge of strength I didn't know I still had. My voice came out stronger than it had in days. "How could you do this to me?" I replied, looking directly into her eyes. "How could you lie about why you couldn't visit your dying mother?" The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. Their fake concern melted away, leaving only cold anger. Charlie made the first mistake. He was always the one who couldn't control his temper. "Mom, you don't understand. We have bills to pay. Sky's magazine business is struggling, and I just bought a new house. We were counting on—" "Charlie, shut up." Russell snapped, but it was too late. My eyes went wide. "Counting on what, Charlie?" I asked quietly. He realized what he had said and started backtracking. "I just meant, someday when you're much older." But Sky couldn't help herself either. "Mom, we all know you were planning to leave us the house. We've already talked to real estate agents about what it's worth. Charlie needs to pay off his mortgage, and I need money to expand my business." Russell put his head in his hands. "Both of you need to stop talking right now." But the truth was pouring out like water from a broken dam. They hadn't been working hard while I was in the hospital. They had been planning how to spend my money after I died. They were waiting for me to die. "Real estate agents?" I whispered. "You were planning to sell my house before I'm even dead?" The silence that followed was deafening. All three of them stared at the floor, caught in their own greed. These weren't children mourning their sick mother. These were vultures circling their prey. I had raised monsters, and I had no one to blame but myself. That night, I pretended to sleep while my children argued in the hallway outside my room. They thought they were whispering, but their voices carried through the thin walls. "We should have visited her at least once," Sky said. "Now she thinks we don't care about her." Charlie's response made my blood run cold. "Why should we have visited? She was going to leave us everything anyway. At least, she was supposed to." "Don't you feel bad at all?" Sky asked. "She's our mother." "Of course I feel bad," Russell replied. "I feel bad that we're about to lose our inheritance because she's having some kind of breakdown." Charlie laughed bitterly. "Remember when Dad died and she kept saying family was the most important thing? Well, family doesn't pay my bills." "The question now is how do we fix this?" Russell said. "Maybe we can convince her she made a mistake. Tell her she was confused from the medication." Sky's voice got excited. "Or we could be extra nice to her for a few days, bring her flowers, act like we care, make her feel guilty for changing the will." I pressed my face into my pillow to muffle my sobs. These people sharing my DNA were discussing how to manipulate me while I was fighting for my life. The children I had sacrificed everything for were plotting to use my love against me. The next morning brought a surprise visitor that filled my heart with warmth. Mrs. Rodriguez from next door walked into my room carrying fresh flowers and a container of homemade soup. "Mia, I heard you were sick," she said, using the Spanish nickname she had called me for years. "I brought you some chicken soup and these flowers from my garden." She sat in the chair next to my bed and took my hand in both of hers. Her hands were rough from years of hard work, but her touch was gentler than any of my children's had ever been. "Have your children been to see you?" she asked. Tears filled my eyes. "They came yesterday," I said carefully. Mrs. Rodriguez nodded knowingly. She was a wise woman who had raised 6 children of her own. "Sometimes the family we choose loves us better than the family we're born with," she said softly. I squeezed her weathered hand. She was right. This neighbor, who barely knew me 10 years ago, had shown me more genuine care in one visit than my children had shown me in months. "Mrs. Rodriguez, can I ask you something?" I whispered. "Of course, Misha." If something happens to me, would you make sure my cats are okay? I know it's a lot to ask. She smiled. You don't even need to ask. We take care of each other. That's what real family does. Later that day, I watched from my hospital bed as my 3 children met secretly in the parking lot. They thought I couldn't see them from my window, but I had a clear view of the area where they were huddled together next to Russell's rental car. I could tell by their body language that they were plotting something. Skye was waving her hands around dramatically. Charlie kept shaking his head and pointing toward the hospital. Russell was clearly trying to take control of the conversation. A visitor in the next bed noticed me watching. "Those your kids?" she asked. "Unfortunately," I replied. "They look upset about something." I almost laughed. "They're upset they won't be inheriting my money." The woman's eyebrows shot up. "While you're still alive? That's cold." Through the window, I watched Russell pull out his phone and start making a call. Skye was biting her nails, something she only did when she was extremely stressed. Charlie was pacing in small circles. After about 30 minutes, they seemed to reach some kind of agreement. They all shook hands like they had just made a business deal. Then Russell started walking back toward the hospital entrance, while Skye and Charlie got in their cars and drove away. I had a sinking feeling about what they were planning, but I also knew they were too late. The new will was already filed with the court. Mr. Albright had made sure of that. Over the next few days, something miraculous started happening. My health began to improve dramatically. The doctors were amazed by how quickly my heart was responding to treatment. My blood pressure stabilized. My energy started coming back. "This is remarkable, Mrs. Lawson," Dr. Hamilton said during his morning rounds. "Your numbers are better than they've been in months. Whatever's changed in your life, keep doing it." I knew exactly what had changed. I had stopped carrying the weight of trying to earn love from people who were incapable of giving it. The stress that had been killing me slowly for years was gone. I felt lighter than I had in decades. Massey, my favorite nurse, noticed the change too. "You seem like a completely different person," she said while checking my IV. "You're smiling more. Your color is better. Even your posture is different." I made some important decisions, I told her. I finally put myself first. She nodded approvingly. "About time. I've seen a lot of patients in my 30 years of nursing, and the ones who survive are usually the ones who stop letting other people steal their peace." The betrayal that had broken my heart was actually setting me free. I was becoming stronger, not just physically, but emotionally too. My children's greed had shown me their true nature, but it had also shown me mine. I was unshakable now. On Wednesday afternoon, Skye arrived at my hospital room with red, puffy eyes and a bouquet of expensive roses. She was wearing her best dress and had clearly spent time on her makeup to hide the fact that she had been crying. "Mom, I feel terrible about everything," she said, sitting on the edge of my bed and grabbing my hand. "I should have been here from the beginning. I should have dropped everything to be with you." Her performance was almost believable. Almost. "I've been thinking about how selfish I've been," she continued, squeezing my hand tighter. "You've always been there for me, and I let work get in the way of what really matters. If you just reconsider this will thing, I promise I'll take better care of you from now on." I looked into her eyes. The same blue eyes I had looked into when she was a little girl afraid of thunderstorms. But now those eyes were calculating and desperate. "Skye," I said softly, "if you wanted to take care of me, you would have been here when I called you crying and begging you to come." Her face fell. The mask slipped for just a moment, and I saw the real Skye underneath. She was angry that her manipulation wasn't working. "But Mom, I can change," she said quickly. "Give me another chance." I shook my head sadly. "You had your chance. You had many chances." That afternoon, my children made a spectacle of themselves in the hospital cafe. They didn't realize how sound carries in that small space, or maybe they were too upset to care. Either way, half the hospital heard their argument. "We need that house or I'm completely ruined," Charlie said loudly. "Do you have any idea how much I owe on my mortgage? I was counting on Mom's money to bail me out." "Keep your voice down," Russell hissed. "People are staring." But it was too late. Skye was already crying loudly. "My business is failing. I need that inheritance to keep it afloat. We can't let some stupid animal shelter get our money." An elderly man at the next table turned around. "Did you just say you're upset your sick mother left money to charity instead of you?" His voice was filled with disgust. Russell tried to do damage control. "This is a private family matter." "Not anymore, it isn't," the man replied. "Everyone in here just heard you complaining about your mother's will while she's fighting for her life upstairs." A nurse sitting nearby shook her head in disbelief. "I've never heard anything so heartless in my life." Whispers started spreading throughout the cafe. "Those are Mrs. Lawson's children. Can you believe they're more worried about money than their mother? No wonder she changed her will." My children's reputation in the community was cracking right before their eyes, but they were too caught up in their own greed to notice. While my children were busy planning and scheming, my real family was gathering around me. Mr. Albright visited every other day, not as my lawyer, but as my friend. Mrs. Rodriguez brought me fresh meals and sat with me for hours. Macie made sure I got extra attention during her shifts. My pastor, Father Miguel, came to pray with me and brought news from the animal shelter. "They're so grateful for your planned donation, Leona. They had no idea you were thinking of them." Even other patients on my floor started stopping by. Mrs. Morgan from room 304 shared magazines with me. Mr. Jackson from room 298 played checkers with me when I felt strong enough to sit up. Meanwhile, my children sat in the corner of my room during visiting hours, looking miserable and isolated. They had burned their bridges with everyone else by being so openly greedy and selfish. The contrast was impossible to miss. On one side of my room were people who genuinely cared about my well-being. On the other side were 3 adults who only cared about my bank account. "Leona," Father Miguel said one evening, "you're surrounded by love. Look around this room." He was right. I had never felt more supported in my entire life. Family isn't about blood or obligation. Family is about showing up when it matters. And my real family was right here with me. On Friday morning, my children made one last desperate attempt to change my mind. They surrounded my bed like they were staging an intervention. "Mom, we've been thinking," Russell said in his most serious lawyer voice. "Maybe we can work out a compromise. You can leave money to charity, but also leave us something. Even if it's just the house." I looked at each of their faces. They still didn't understand. They still thought this was about money instead of love. "Here's my compromise," I said, my voice stronger than it had been in weeks. "If you change your minds about visiting me because you actually care about me, not because you want something from me, then we can talk." Sky started crying again. "But we do care about you. Do you?" I asked quietly. "Because caring about someone means being there when they need you. It means putting their needs before your vacation plans. It means calling them back when they're scared and alone." Charlie tried a different approach. "Fine, we were selfish. We messed up. But if you don't change the will back, you're going to destroy our lives." I looked him in the eye. "You already destroyed our relationship when you chose Hawaii over being here with your dying mother." Their faces went white. This was the first time I had directly confronted them about their lies. "If you can't even be honest about where you were when I needed you most," I continued, "then we have nothing left to discuss." 2 weeks later, I was discharged from the hospital. My heart was stronger than it had been in years. Dr. Hamilton said it was one of the most remarkable recoveries he had ever seen in someone my age. As I walked out of the hospital, I wasn't walking into my children's waiting arms. Instead, Mrs. Rodriguez was there with her son to drive me home. Macie had arranged for a home health nurse to check on me twice a week. Father Miguel had organized meals from the church for my first week back. My children stood in the parking lot watching from a distance. They looked like strangers to me now. Sky was crying. Charlie looked angry. Russell just stared at the ground. I didn't wave goodbye. I didn't try to comfort them one last time. I just got into Mrs. Rodriguez's car and let her take me home to start my new life. "How do you feel, mija?" she asked as we drove through my old neighborhood. "Free?" I answered, and I meant it completely. The house looked exactly the same, but everything felt different. This was my home, my sanctuary, my space, and for the first time in my adult life, I didn't have to share it with people who took me for granted. Mrs. Rodriguez helped me inside and made me a cup of tea. "You did the right thing," she said simply. I nodded. I knew I had. Word spread quickly through our small community about what had happened. The story was simple. Leona Lawson had changed her will after her children abandoned her during her medical crisis. And those same children had made fools of themselves at the hospital. My children's friends started treating them differently. Invitations to parties dried up. Colleagues whispered behind their backs at work. Their own neighbors looked at them with disgust when they heard the story. Sky's magazine business, which was already struggling, lost several major clients who didn't want to be associated with someone so heartless. Charlie found out that his boss at the insurance company had heard about the situation and was reconsidering his employment. Russell lost 2 potential clients who said they couldn't trust someone who had abandoned their own mother. Their greed and selfishness had become their public legacy. In a small town like ours, reputation matters, and theirs was destroyed. Meanwhile, I was receiving cards and visits from people I barely knew. "You're an inspiration," one note said. "You showed us that we don't have to accept being treated poorly, even by family." The animal shelter put up a small plaque thanking me for my future donation. Mrs. Rodriguez's whole family treated me like an honorary grandmother. I had never felt so respected and valued. My children had lost far more than money. They had lost their community, their reputation, and their mother's love. 6 months after my hospital stay, I was living the happiest life I had ever known. My health was excellent. My days were filled with activities I actually enjoyed instead of obligations to ungrateful children. My investment in myself was paying dividends. I was finally living for me instead of living to please others. The weight of disappointing children was gone from my shoulders forever.